Stealing the village drum is easy, but getting a space to beat it in secret is the challenge. So maintain your integrity and stay happy.
Hello, dear listeners of the Paradigm Initiative podcast, and welcome to yet another edition with me, Giyo Ndzi. On today's edition of the podcast, we are going to discuss information, or rather, disinformation. We have with us as guests Professor Berger,
who is an expert in media and IT policy issues. Hi, Professor.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm excited to be with you.
Amazing. We are glad to have you with us too. And of course, we have with us Sani Suleiman, who is Programs Officer at Paradigm Initiative, and he leads the research work of the institution. How are you doing today, Sani?
I'm good, Giyo. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I thought you were going to say I'm researchful. Like, how are you feeling? I'm researchful. Yeah, because
well, I am.
Amazing. So today we're going to be talking about information, or rather disinformation. And I know it is one of those words which over the past couple of years we've started to hear more often, disinformation. You know, as young people, we used to mostly hear of information. Sometimes we could hear of counter information, but then disinformation, not like it is a new concept, but it appears to just be more proliferated these days. And recently at the Digital Rights and Inclusion Forum for 2026 in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, Paradigm Initiative launched a report about this. The report is titled Africa Facing Down Disinformation. Sani, is the situation that bad? The report name itself is just all gloomy. What exactly is happening?
The short answer is it's that bad. But that name came from the findings of the report, actually. So we conducted a research across 6 African countries, namely Benin, Cameroon, Côte d'Ivoire, Senegal, Nigeria, Ghana, and Senegal. I don't know if I mentioned Senegal, but and Senegal. And we try to look at, or rather the research tried to achieve many objectives, one of which is to discuss the online-offline nexus, how online activities and online interaction translates into the offline outcomes. In the information ecosystem, we have seen an instances whereby, a single tweet can spark, communal clash, and so on and so forth. So we were very deliberate to look at that offline-online nexus. We also try as much as possible to incorporate the gender angle, and we have seen how information, or rather the disinformation, malinformation, and all of that affects gender between male and female, and of course any other gender that you recognize. Another thing that we were trying to also look at from that research is the institutional responses. We at the country level, we have so many institutions that deals with the issue of information in their various countries. So what was the response from those institutions? How does it, affect the whole ecosystem as well? So all of this combined together gives, the report its title. So it's Africa Facing Down Disinformation. Of course, the report was quite extensive. It's the extended version is over 110 pages. So it's quite a large report. Yeah. And we have worked with a team of over 11 people, including Prof here that is part of this conversation. So yeah, it's that bad.
Prof, talking about it, I was going through and looking at similarities between the country reports. At the end of the day, there is one thing, which is that citizens are bearing the brunt of all of this. But then before it gets to this, there's a whole process of how there's the dissemination of these falsehoods, intentionally and unintentionally. So how exactly does that play out? For example, as a regular person, I wake up, I go to social media, I have fun, I repost some things, and I go to bed. How is that good or bad?
So I think that this concept of information integrity, it's a higher level concept than disinformation.
Yeah.
Because disinformation is false information and often supercharged with hate, identity, emotion, and stuff, even entertainment. But information integrity is to say, in the whole system, can there be information that is trustworthy, reliable, and so on? So that what you're looking at then is what can support that kind of information that people can treat as credible, and what kind of stuff is irrelevant, or what kind of stuff is actually false.
Yeah.
Or promoting polarization, hatred, stereotypes, gender, misogyny, this kind of stuff. And I think that what's important with this is that, of course, what we see in these countries is that Africans are not victims of just getting the bad stuff. People are countering that. People are relying on other networks, faith-based networks, for example, to check if they hear something on social media. Maybe you check, for example, if it's about criminality, gangs, and security issues, and it's always been blamed on a certain religious group. Maybe your own different religious group has a more accurate perspective, that you should not stereotype everybody, for example, who is a Fulani herdsman as a Islamic extremist who is persecuting Christians. So that people are standing up to disinformation by using a number of information networks. And then you have other groups like fact checkers.
Yeah.
Fact checkers are trying to look when there are lies. For example, a lie that a president is appointing his son, or that somebody tried to stage a coup, or a lie about the stability of the country as regards its neighbors, especially in the Sahel. All that stuff. I think people are in this contestation about what can you depend on and what can you not. And sometimes the more reliable media is the mainstream media, which is also then got a presence on social media. And the citizens themselves, if you get up, you wake up, you enjoy yourself on social media, you obviously need that resilience to say, this sounds a bit tricky to me. How can I check this? Is there a fact check on it?
Yeah.
Can I ask other networks? Can I go to other media? Can I do a search just to double check this? Because if you don't do that, the danger is that you can amplify and spread stuff which looks exciting, looks interesting, but actually you're playing into the game of destroying information.
When we're talking about concepts like information integrity, misinformation, and all of that, and you present something like this, ideally the job of research is to inform community so we can look at policies and take action. But then we also admit that for a lot of people, sometimes they might feel like this sounds elitist. So if someone is listening to you and you're talking about information integrity and they don't really understand what it is, so what should ideal information integrity look like in your day-to-day life as an average African walking on the streets who doesn't even know that a report like this exists?
Well, the one thing that this report says is that governments must play the role that they should play. Now, when there's, for example, people panicking because they think there's insurgents or there's criminals, and they do a mass exodus. Where's the government putting out credible information, accurate information, timely information? And what this study shows, the government is absent. So, of course, rumor can really spread then. But people should realize this is interesting. This information is not being confirmed or denied by government. So governments need to be more active, and they need to be truthful.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead, what we see in some cases is that governments are actually closing down the internet. Governments are persecuting bloggers who are telling the truth. Governments are trying to whip the media to tell the government's point of view. So people on the street need to understand that when there's stuff coming, you've got to demand that government be accountable, that it actually says, according to the security forces, there is or is not this threat, and that they start giving the public information. You've got to also say the government should stop persecuting those who are trying to give reliable information. Maybe it's religious leaders, maybe it's journalists, maybe it's fact checkers. And not just stop persecuting them, but support them. This is what's important also. You know, most media in Africa that is owned by the state is just propaganda for the government.
So
it should not be.
Yeah, definitely. In an ideal situation, it should not be, which is what we are seeking to achieve. And Sani, then I'll turn to you. We're talking about other stakeholders involved. There is a key stakeholder in play here, which we cannot ignore, the influencers. We have people on social media these days who have more followers than even state media. And the followers are not just they are very, very loyal to them, right? So how do you situate them within the context of this research?
So we have a whole, findings around this in the report. But before I get into that, I'll also build on Prof's remark, which is still government and other stakeholders need to do much more rather in getting information literacy across the common man. I think one of the issues is a lot of citizens are not information literate. So information literacy, it's different from the conventional literacy that we usually mention. It requires at least the basics that the citizens need to be able to tell at the lowest level, what is misinformation, what is disinformation. Of course, there are some complex, campaigns of misinformation and disinformation. We do not expect, the citizens to reach that level, but at the very basic, let information literacy be part of our curriculum, be part of our programs in radio and other mediums. That's something that we need to start with, and it doesn't have to. Government is not the only one responsible for this. Other stakeholders need to do that. Now, coming back to your question, we have seen how influencers, both domestic and international influencers, can influence democratic processes in our countries, be it election, be it disinformation campaign, be it fueling crisis, and so on and so forth. The reality is we need to put mechanisms in check. And we need to be very careful in this. Me saying that we need to put mechanisms doesn't mean saying clamping down. Of course, we need to sanitize the whole information ecosystem, and that should start with the government. There has to be, the literacy first, policies and other instruments as second, and then trying to also, work with other stakeholders, not in silos, because what we are seeing is government is doing their own effort here, platforms are doing their own, their influencers are there. Like, it's quite fragmented. Everybody is just doing their own thing. But you need to be able to, convene all of these stakeholders and have like a common framework that will govern how, to tackle the whole issue of information integrity, how to promote information integrity in at the local level and also at the state level. Yeah. So there is no one fit size all answer, but each stakeholder has their own role to play. Yeah. And also the most important here is that communication between the stakeholders and finding a common framework that works for everybody without clamping down, free expression, clamping down, or shutting down access to information.
Yeah. Africa Facing Down Disinformation. Oh, this is so punchy. And it's easy to retain, but so too should be the lessons we are taking from this report, which is talking about information integrity. And Professor, so Sani talked about influencers and the way they are able to control the narrative these days, and he was situating their place in the report. But then, what is your recommendation based on how much power they are able to wield as influencers? We see individuals who are able to actually stand toe to toe with governments in terms of followership on social media and even influence these days.
Well, I think there are 2 points here. The first one is that the public should also know influencers are coming from somewhere. They are not necessarily experts. They sometimes are presenting themselves as experts. But second, most people who are journalists are supposed to subscribe to a code of ethics, which is that they will verify information before distributing it, that they will publish in the public interest. And so you as a user, if you see an influencer presenting stuff that you know is wrong, you should challenge them. You should encourage them to support a code of ethics. And especially because influencers are making money, sometimes by secret sponsorships, sometimes they're proposing in favor of one political candidate because they got some secret money from that. And really the public must begin to demand that influencers become ambassadors for information integrity.
So we basically should stretch freedom of information to them, because a lot of times people want freedom of information acts from the government and they say, we will need government to disclose these things, but we should also hold influencers accountable to that level.
Exactly. And then also, I think people need to get the platforms to hold the influencers accountable. Now, the reason why we have influencers is because the platforms have a commercial imperative to build some people who will attract you as the viewer, as the audience. And they keep building. Those are not necessarily people who are the most accurate, the most ethical. Yeah. It's just the ones that can attract the biggest attention. And to attract the biggest attention, often you're just angry, you're nationalistic, you're full of hate, you're sort of showing that you should have contempt for women's rights, for example. So I think that's important to understand. The platforms, they don't have a commitment to information integrity, which is a problem because at the end of the day, the society needs information that has integrity. You can't be drowned out in lies and hate. You also need to have some quality stuff. And these platforms, what people should understand is we get free services from the platform because their business model is to keep us there, to identify who we are, and then to put advertising in front of us. That is the game. Yeah. So we need to understand, okay, if we're in this game, how risky is it? So, for example, people may know, I heard this in recent research, every day your phone most people, it's sending at least 300 messages out there as to where you are.
Yeah.
Now, those messages, they're going to the weather apps, the mapping apps, whatever kind of other apps are doing, but 300 messages a day where you are. Who can use that information? These companies collecting it or selling it.
Yeah.
Sometimes criminals are getting this.
Exactly.
And so we need to understand that this data game, which is what the social media is about, it's about data. When we get involved in that game, we also have to be quite cautious about how they're making money on data.
Thank you very much, Professor. And so, Sani, before we went on the break and came back, you were telling us about the fact that there's no one size fits all, but still there's a whole lot to pick from the report. And as an individual, then what speaks to you in this report in terms of the recommendations? Very briefly, one thing that speaks to you as an individual, as a person, which you're taking home from this report.
Thanks, Giyo, again. So the report provides recommendation for almost all of the stakeholders. That's my biggest takeaway from the report. It was quite an extensive work, but also the fact that from the beginning, we had in mind that this should be not only for advocacy but also like allow me to use Bible is not the right word, but for government, it's something that they can consult and see, because there are clear recommendations. I mean, for government, for example, there are over 7 recommendations, practical recommendations that
for all the governments of the different countries involved in the report.
Yes, and also social media platforms have their recommendations as well, media as well, civil society, and so on and so forth. So that will be my biggest takeaway from that. And also maybe allow me to add that is the methodology we used. So the report is not an outcome of just reading secondary data or analyzing information that is in the public. No, we went further and do a content analysis for across all the 6 countries plus gender angle. So we went very deep. We look at the actors that are pushing these narratives. We look at the pattern of the narrative. We look to some extent the outcome as well. So it's quite resourceful.
And interestingly, we hope to come back to that on another episode. We still want to have you on another episode where we talk and look more specifically at that gender angle. Thank you very much. Professor, one last key take from the research.
Well, the one recommendation is that countries can benefit if they develop a national information integrity framework. And if a country has such a national information integrity framework, it must be human rights based. It must respect freedom of expression, access to information, transparency, must apply to the platforms, must apply to the bloggers, must apply to the influencers, must apply to the media. It should be developed by everybody, because if you only have a government making a framework, of course, then that can be a very limited framework. Then they interpret information integrity to be government information. So I think that's something to take away. And I would also encourage anybody listening to this, if you're interested in the common patterns, read the report. If you're interested in one of the countries, you will find that country there.
In the report,
As Sani said, but I'm happy to repeat, there's Cameroon, there's Benin, there's Nigeria, there's Ghana, there's Cote d'Ivoire, there's Senegal. So if you are interested in any of those individual countries, go and look at that research. You will find it extremely interesting.
Thank you very much, Professor Guy Berger. Thank you very much, Sani Suleiman. It was a pleasure having you on the Paradigm Initiative podcast to discuss the new information integrity report titled Africa Facing Down Disinformation. Africa Facing Down Disinformation. Stealing the village drum is easy, but getting a space to beat it in secret is the challenge. So maintain your integrity and stay happy. Thank you for staying with us on the Paradigm Initiative podcast. I have been Giyo Ndzi. See you on the next one.